Statement to the press.
I'm an addict. My name's Wanda. If y'all don't know me, I'm very klutzy. So Jeff said, break a leg. I thought, oh, he shouldn't say that to me. He don't know who he's talking to. But I just want to start out. I love this, riding the river of change, because last summer, like Lauren said, I like to go, so we're at a retreat. I'm in a NA camp out, and I said, oh, let's go up to Helen and Tube. And so we go up there, and there's about that much water, and I said, oh, it'll be fun. So I got Pat and Larry and Naomi and Kim and Lauren to go with me, and they didn't let me forget it, because you didn't tube a whole lot. You picked your tube up and carried it, It's just anyway, I heard Cecil say last night that he's one of those that believes he's an addict before he ever got here, and I always say that too, because I grew up in a family that was very dysfunctional as far, everybody drank, and my father died when I was 8, and my mother died when I was 16, and she had 14 kids, but she only raised 11. But then she raised 2 of my sister's kids that was an alcoholic, and so there was always, I never felt like I got enough love from her. She had grandchildren by the time I was born. She had 3 grandkids already. And I used to get jealous whenever some of the grandkids would come over to the house, because she would let them drink coffee and she wouldn't let any of us drink coffee, So it was like I didn't understand that. And she would be loving on them, holding them in her lap. I don't ever remember her holding me in her lap. She had real long hair, and I used to fix her hair for her, and that's only attention that I remember getting. So I had to do a lot of work on that after I got clean. I know that she did the best job she knew how to do, with that many kids and limited amount of money. But the town I grew up in was very small, and it was funny because this is how weird I was. I played basketball in high school, and somebody would take me home after basketball, and I didn't want them to know where I lived. Although it's such a small town, how could they not know where I live? But I didn't want them to see me walk in that house, because it was an old house, and so I would say, you can just let me out in the street, that's fine, and it's like, I didn't never even think about, how ridiculous that probably sounded to them, but I never felt like I got any attention from the guys, and it was very funny too, because years later, there was this one guy I liked down the street, and years later I told him, I said, I had a crush on you in high school. He said, yeah, I liked you too, but you had too many brothers. So that was funny, it's just the things that we think about, when my mother died, I had to go live with a brother and his wife and kids, and they moved me to Shreveport, Louisiana, which is a lot bigger town than I grew up in. And it was like March of my senior year when we moved, and I just gave up. I couldn't. It was so many people at that school. It was just overwhelming, and I was failing. And I had always been a B or C average, even if I didn't study. So my sister-in-law, I found out years later that my sister-in-law went up to the school and she told them that my mother had just passed away and I was having a hard time, and so they passed me. And then that summer was when I found the drug alcohol. And boy, did that change the way I felt. And I thought, all of a sudden, I felt like I was somebody, not little Wanda Winkler, And I always felt like, I was always shy about dancing. I went to a lot of dances with friends growing up, but I always felt shy about it. And when I got that 25-cent beer night, I felt pretty good out there dancing, And the very first night out drinking, I blacked out. So that should have showed me something right there that, but it didn't. I kept using, went through a lot of stuff using, I had a date rape because he got me loaded, and just never told anybody, except my best friend. And it's just like I put myself in that predicament, though, I didn't know this guy. So then I met this guy, and we started dating, and we broke up, and then we went back together. And him and one of my other friends, we went to the beach in Galveston because he had never seen the beach. And we ended up getting loaded, so we spent the night on the beach. And the next day, my brother wasn't very happy when I came home. And he thought he had, had his way with me, which he really hadn't. But so he made him marry me, and this was my senior year in high school. Yeah. And I didn't love this guy, but I saw it as a way of getting out of my brother's house. And for some reason, I had this in my mind. I don't know where I got it, but I was thinking, you get married, you have a house, you have a car, and all this. Because I had this little car when we got married. I had this little car that you couldn't even crank it. You had to push it to start it, And it was a convertible, so if you let the top down, it was in the back seat. So I just took it off and put it in the garage, It was a little Metropolitan, if y'all know what that is. That was a long time ago. And so it was just weird, and one time I got a ticket in that because me and my girlfriend were going down the road, and she said, "You're too drunk to drive, let me drive," and we changed drivers going down the road. So I had to tell my brother about that, and he wasn't happy. And it's just weird, like the things that we go through using, and I always thought I wasn't hurting anybody but myself. But now that I'm a parent and my daughter still uses, and she's almost 48 years old, I see how much it hurt the people that love me, my family, watching me. I remember one of the last times I got invited over to my sister's house for Christmas dinner. I was like 2 or 3 hours late, and she was mad, and I didn't realize why she was so mad, because I was already high. I didn't think anything about it, But, it's just, anyway, so I married this guy. I had 2 kids with him. We stayed married for 8 years, splitting up constantly, and going back together because he would promise, it was going to be better. And he was a verbal abuser. He never wanted to put his hands on me because he was scared of my brothers, but he would verbally abuse me, and he had my low self-esteem. He had my self-esteem so low because he would tell me stuff like, "You're not pretty, you could never get nobody else, so you better stay with me," and just things like that, and calling me all the names he would call me, that I wasn't, good enough for him. And so it went on like that for, like I said, 8 years. And when I left him, he stalked me. And he already had a girlfriend before I ever left him, but, I didn't know anything about stalking back then. And the police wouldn't do anything about it. And I said, "Well, what are y'all going to do? Wait till he kills me before you do anything about it?" And pretty much, back then, this was like 1975. So after I left him, my addiction really took off because he had always kind of controlled it. If I started getting drunk, he'd get mad. And so I started hanging out with people that did other drugs, and I ended up doing drugs that I said I would never do, that they would hand it to me and I wouldn't even ask what it was. All I would say is, "How's this going to make me feel?" And that was all that was important to me. And my drug of choice was free, that was my drug of choice, And so I did a lot of things for drugs, and I didn't find out until I got clean that I could have prostituted. I gave it away, I was that stupid, and I said, dang, So it was just stuff like that I had to take a look at. And so how I ended up here, I ended up, one night I was driving home from being out partying all day, and I was so miserable, and I said, "God, I can't do this anymore, I just want to die. I just can't keep doing this, And all the way home, I lived around a lake in Shreveport, and all the way home around that lake, I kept saying, "Oh, by the way, I'm in my niece's brand new car. She let me take her car home because she wasn't ready to go." And I kept saying, "Oh my God, if I just wrecked this car, I could pull into the lake, or I could pull into the trees, and maybe I'd kill myself." And then my brain would say, "But what if you don't kill yourself? And what if you just wreck her new car? She's going to kill you." So I made it home, and the next day I got up and I couldn't go to work. I just started crying and saying, "I just can't do this anymore. I'm just so tired," And I had a whole bottle of pills. And I started looking for the pills because I was going to take them all. And the more I would look for them and couldn't find them, the more I would be hysterically crying, you know. And it was like so weird because something had told my husband, this is how God works in my life, something had told my husband that day he needed to take them pills with him to work, even though he could have been fired if he had found them. So, you know, I finally called my niece that I partied with all the time, and I said, I can't do this anymore, you know. She said, I told you it was them Valium, you need to get off them Valium. I said, no, you don't understand, that's the only thing that keeps me going, you know. And so she called my sister, and they put me in a psychiatric ward at Brentwood Hospital in Shreveport. And this is what ended up happening. I'm on one side because I'm going to kill myself, you know, wanted to kill myself, and where they have to watch you. And the other side is the chemical dependency unit. And out in the middle was a pool table. And so they locked me out of my room because I was trying to stay in my room. And I would just pace the halls. I was mad at the world, you know, because I was in there. And they told my husband I was going to be in there a long time because I was sick. Yeah, and so here I am getting a handful of pills every 4 hours free that I like. And it wasn't doing what I wanted it to do, you know. I wasn't feeling what I wanted to feel from that. So I would see these people come out, and they would all come out in the main room, and they would be shooting pool, and they'd be laughing and talking and hugging each other. I went up to the nurse's station. I said, I want what they're on. She said, they're not on anything. And I said, you know, really, yeah. So I didn't believe it. Finally, a cute guy came up to me. And he said, what are you on? And I told him, and he said, you know, the drugs are your problem. I thought, are you crazy? You know, this is all that's keeping me together. He said, we don't take anything here, you know. So he invited me to a meeting that night, but it was outside the hospital, and they didn't let me go because I might kill myself while I'm gone. And so I remember, I'll never forget this, I remember watching them get on the elevator, and I was so sad because it was a couple of cute guys in there, and, you know, I'm looking for Mr. Right still, you know. And so in a few minutes they come back up, and they said the van wouldn't start. So they were having the meeting in their little meeting room, so I was able to go in there. I couldn't tell you one thing that was said, who said it, what, but afterwards they got up and they started hugging each other, and the men were hugging men and women. I go, what is this, you know? But I saw how happy they were, and I wanted that, you know, so bad. I was so tired of hurting. And so that Tuesday night, they told me about another meeting that was downstairs, and I went to that meeting. And I remember there was a big pole there, so I got over by that pole, slid all the way down to my chair so they wouldn't see me, and they called on me anyway. And I said, I'm Wanda, and I don't know if I'm supposed to be here or not because I'm in the psychiatric ward. And afterwards, boy, I beeline for that hall. You know, I hit that door, and this girl chased me down and she said, you're in the right place. She said, I was right where you were. And she said she had been clean, I don't know, maybe a year or so. And so I thought, she said, this is a way out of the pain. And that's what I wanted. I wanted a way out of the pain. I used to picture my death and who would come to my funeral and who would be crying, you know, who would be glad. You know, it was that kind of sick I was. So the next day, I told my psychiatrist that I wanted to go to that program because, first of all, it's only 28 days, and he had already told my husband I was going to be in there a long time, and there was cute guys, so I was going to get in there and get out in 28 days and then continue my life, you know. And so while I'm in there, I guess it was about maybe 2.5 weeks, and one day in group, I just heard something that I needed to hear, and I just started crying, and I went outside. My counselor followed me, and she said, what's wrong? I said, I'm one of y'all. It's the first time it had sunk in, you know, that I might really have a drug problem, because I always tried to blame it on everything else, you know. And even in the steps, I don't know how long in the first step, I saw the word drugs. I'm powerless over drugs. I didn't see, anything else. Addiction, I didn't even know what that was, you know. And so I said, okay, I'm powerless over drugs. I can do that, yeah, because them pills were making my life a problem, you know. And certain alcohol I couldn't drink anymore because I'd go right into a blackout and be sick for 2 days. And so I was justifying all this in my mind, you know. And so it was quite a while. And then I would see the second step, and it says, I would say, okay, well, I've been restored to sanity because I was in a psychiatric unit, and now I'm not, so I'm restored to sanity. And 3 hung me up, though, because I wasn't so sure about this God thing, because I thought that God had let all that stuff happen to me, growing up. And finally somebody said, don't you think that God was there holding your hand while you were going through that? I mean, because there was been times I should have died. I had a bad car wreck, and they were amazed that I wasn't killed in it. And so it's just like I had to start taking a look at that. And finally, this older guy in the program, you may remember him from Shreveport, Barry, he said, just believe that I believe. And I could do that. I could believe that he said that there's a loving God. And then I met this lady, Sydney from California, and she said that he can be anything you want him to be as long as he's loving, caring, and forgiving. Because I had a hard time forgiving myself for all the stuff that I had done while I was using, because I thought I was supposed to be this perfect mother, and I lost custody of the kids, and, it's just that kind of stuff. So, I started really trying to work on that, and I forgot to tell you, I was already married again when I got here. I was in my second marriage, and I married him to get out of my brother's house again, because I'm back living with my brother, and because he always saved me. And I was thinking, I'll get married and I'll have my own place, we'll get a car. And so he said, I want you to move in with me. I said, no, I'm never living with another man unless I'm married. He said, okay, let's get married. Okay. And so my niece said, we were riding around the day, and he had asked me, please don't get loaded for the wedding. And I promised him I wouldn't. Well, me and my niece were riding around all day doing our pills and drinking. And she says, if you don't marry him, I'll take you to Dallas and we'll party all weekend, And I said, no, I need to marry him, And she said, I know you don't love him. I said, yeah, but I need to get married and settle down. And I thought that marriage was going to help me stop using drugs. That's what I thought. And that it was going to make me happy. So I married him in March, and August I was in treatment, if that tells you anything. So it went downhill fast. And I was so loaded on our wedding night, we didn't even do the deal, because I passed out as soon as I hit the bed. And he was furious the next day. And so it's just, I don't know, I forgot where I was going with that, but he was a very good man. I didn't love him, and I after about a year and a half clean, I knew that I could not stay clean and stay married to him, not loving him, And I was talking to one of my friends about it, and she said, just work the first 3 steps on it, And so I work them, but back then in '83 meant talk about them. Well, this was actually '84. 83. Anyway, it don't matter. I got clean on August 23rd of 1983. Was my first day clean. And by the way, the psychiatrist did not want to take me off all those pills, but I said, they're helping me more. I refused the pills, and I said, they're helping me more than you're helping me. So, but I'm getting back. I go backwards sometimes. I'm sorry. So we got married, and we stayed married for 18 months, like I said, and then I started thinking, well, I'm either going to kill him, or I'm going to kill myself, or I'm going to go back out. I knew that those were my 3 choices. And so she told me to work the 3 steps on it, and I did. I talked it over with myself, and I said, okay, I don't have any money to leave him, so I went and slept on one of my friend's couches that was still using, and then our income tax came in that week, and he gave me half of it. So I was able to go get my first apartment by myself ever at 35 years old, or 34, I don't know. Anyway, so then I was scared because I'd never lived by myself before. So this is how scared I was. If I was in the house before it got dark, I was okay. But if I went to a meeting and came home, I would have to look in every closet, and I wouldn't even... I had a mattress that was on the floor because I didn't even have a bed frame. And I was scared to let my leg get off the bed because I was afraid something was going to grab it, How can something grab it under the bed when there's beds on the floor? But that was my fear, It's just, that's how scared I was. And I didn't sleep good. And then we would go out on Friday nights after the Friday night meeting, and there was a lot of times I didn't have any money to go out, but I would go anyway, because even if I just drank a Coke, it was, because the meeting after the meeting, to me, sometimes I get more out of that than I do the actual meeting, because I can talk about what I want to talk about. I heard this guy say one time, he said, boy, you get us at a meeting and nobody wants to share, you get us outside and you can't shut us up. And that's so true for me, Sometimes I don't share a lot in my home group, and they tell me about it, and I say, well, I can't share unless it speaks to me, and I don't want to just share just to hear myself share, I can do that. So I've really been working on lately trying to make myself share more. And I've had quite a few sponsors since I've been clean, and worked through the steps, and it got to where my last sponsor, we had disconnected, and it was probably my fault too. She was going through a lot of stuff too, though, and I had been sitting on a step for a couple of years, and I said, man, I can't do this anymore. I got to get another sponsor. And so it was so weird how God works. I had been praying about it, and I was thinking of all these women I could ask, and so we went to Kim and Jimmy's house for something, and Lauren was there with Jeff, and she comes in, she's so bubbly and everything. And I said, oh man, I just love her, I'd known her from some women's meetings, but I didn't know her, and she was just so friendly and so bubbly, and when I called her up to ask her to sponsor me, she kind of hesitated, and I thought, oh no, she don't want to sponsor me. But, she did, and I'm really grateful that, we've been working some steps together, and it's really helped me. I don't call a lot, but when my butt's on fire, I'm calling, Not too long ago, I had this woman that I was supposedly sponsoring that had called me 3 times in 6 months. And she came to my home group, and I'm chairing, and she went off on me during the meeting, telling everybody how I didn't sponsor her the way I was supposed to sponsor her, calling me by my name. And it was so humiliating, and so I was, when I left home, I was crying, and I thought it was too late to call Lauren, so I called Pat. I knew she'd still be up. And I'm crying all the way home talking to Pat, and I said, I'll call Lauren tomorrow and tell her. And I missed my exit even. I had to go way out of my way to go home, and it was just like, God, and she had 28 years clean, and so that just, and what I had to learn, and Lauren helped me with this, that was not about me. That was about her stuff, and I forgave her, because if I hold on to it, who's it going to hurt? Me, not her. She's already moved on, and so, and I had to remember that's what they, told me resentments do, is resentments hurt me. They're not hurting them. And I let her go, and the next time she came to my home group, I hugged her, and she still ain't said she's sorry or nothing, but that's okay. That's her stuff, she can live with herself. But, so it's just been so much stuff with my daughter over the years. I wish that I had wrote some of the things down and kept them. I used to throw my step work away after I got done with it. And because I remember one time, I don't know where we were living, but although I sponsor Kim, I use her too, and I remember one time she said, you need to write a book because so much stuff has happened, My daughter is living in Alexandria right now again. That's where I live. And her daughter, who is 14, is living in West Virginia. And it breaks my heart because her daughter was living with us for 2 years. We had her very stable, and she was doing really good in school. And then she comes and jerks her out and moves her off. And, I don't know what to do about that. I've worked the steps on her so many times, that it's tiring. It really is tiring, and she always has excuses for why. She's just drinking now. She says, I'm not doing anything else. I'm just drinking. This still addiction, and she still, acts out. She calls me almost every day, and I've learned I don't say anything to her. I don't ask questions because I don't agree with her lifestyle. She don't even have anywhere to live. She goes from man to man to man to man, and it's just like, I have to just let her be who she wants to be. She knows where NA is. She's been in the program so many times, you know. I was telling this story about one time we was living in Atlanta, and I had went up to Kim and Jimmy's house, lake house, for the weekend, and I had told her before I left. She said, "I'm going to party while you're gone," because she was living with me, her and her baby at that time. And I said, "You better not, haha." You know, I thought she was kidding. Well, she partied while we were gone. The police came to our house. So Sunday, we're on the way home. We're fixing to go tubing, and my son calls me, and he says, "I think you probably want to come home." He said, "The police have been over here." And I came home, and the next week, I even found a crack pipe in my bedroom. And that one of the things I had told her, you know, don't go in our bedroom. And I didn't even know what it was, because I got clean before crack, you know. And so I asked my son, I said, "What is this? You know, a little round glass vial. What is this?" He says, "You know what that is?" I said, "I don't have a clue," you know. And so I said, "Is it something she did drugs with?" He said, "Yes, Mom." You know, it's just that's how out of it I was. I always say I'm BC before crack. So, you know, and I heard a speaker one time in Dallas, and he goes, and then I found crack, and we all know what happened after that. I said, "No, I don't. What happened?" I wanted to ask him, you know. But it's like, I'm glad that I didn't have crack, because I would have probably killed myself, you know. But I really love Narcotics Anonymous, like Lauren was telling you. You know, I believe in getting involved, because I think that's what I know, that's what kept me here. Because you know, when I got out of treatment, you know, all the things they tell you, you know, go to 90 meetings, get a sponsor, read the book, blah, blah, blah. And I said, but I'm different. So I'm not going to do all that. I'm not going to get a sponsor. I'm not going to work the steps, you know. I read a little bit of the basic text because it just came out. It was exciting, you know. So I would read that a little bit. And when back then we only wrote 4 steps. So I had wrote my 4th step, and I shared it with my niece while she was high. Now, hello. But that's the first time I had told anybody outside my family that I had been raped, you know. And so, you know, it's like, God, who I picked to do this, you know. But she you know, she didn't question none of it. Or point out my character defects, you know, which is what I probably really needed. So the next time I wrote a 4th step, I was going to Texas to a convention. They have them every 4 months, and I was going with 2 guys from Shreveport, because I was already separated, not boyfriends. This was 2 friends. And all the way over there, I'm thinking, God, please put somebody in my life I can share this step with. You know, I need to get rid of this stuff. And so there was 2 women over there from South Louisiana. And so I just kept thinking, you know, which one should I ask? Which one should I ask? And I ended up, God said, ask both of them. So I asked both of them, and one of them had kids, so she was able to relate with me with the feelings about losing my kids, and the other one had all the sexual stuff I'd had, so she was able to help me with that. And it was like, I got back to the cabin that night, and I thought, I don't feel any different. I don't feel any better. But the next day, I did. It was like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders because I told somebody else those secrets. Also that weekend, I met my now husband, which when I met him, I told somebody, he's not my type. What did I know about my type, you know? I like young, cute guys, you know? He had on this T-shirt that said something like, beat me, whip me, make me write bad checks. I said, oh no. He's into kinky. I'm not into kinky. But it was because he was an accountant, you know. And then he had on T-shirt something about if you love something, set it free. If it don't come back, hunt it down and kill it. So I was kind of a little leery, you know, him. But when I went back and told one of my friends that I had met him, she says, you don't have to marry him, just become his friends. Oh, you know, because we like to take hostages, you know. And so I became his friend, you know. We would walk, you know, everywhere I go, he'd be there. And I didn't know it was called stalking, you know, back then. And so when we finally got together, he told me that he was had his eye on two girls. One lived in Alexandria, and I lived in Shreveport. And so one day I had a gay roommate at this time, and I said something about Bob, and he goes, "Oh, I just love Bob." He said, "Call him, see if he'll come up here and go to a meeting." So I called him, and he said he was just walking out the door. He was headed to the Alexandria meeting, but he came up there. Now, I live across town in Shreveport from where the meeting was. He beat me to the meeting. So that's, it was so funny. So, we started dating. Our first date was to an NA meeting, and it's just always been NA for us, we like to go to conventions, we like to see other people. I do regional service work right now, and the reason I love to do regional service work is because we've moved around a lot, and lived in quite a few different states, and I found out that the best way to get to know people is to go to region and get involved, and you start meeting all these people. Now I have some really good women friends from Baton Rouge and North Shore, and sponsor somebody in New Orleans and Lafayette. So it's like I'm really getting connected, because first couple of years in Alexandria, I hated it there. I was thinking, and every time we would always move, I would always tell God, please take me to Georgia. Please take me back to Georgia. I want to be around some women with more time than me. I'm tired of being the only, the woman with the most time in the rooms. And where I'm at now, I think the most hurtful thing that woman said to me when she was taking my inventory was, she said, "And you walk around with your 33 years like you're all that." And I thought, does she know who I am inside? I'm that little girl crying inside, I have no self-esteem. And my brain hasn't picked up yet with how old I really am, We were on a cruise in February, 7 couples. So Jimmy and Jeremy are fixing to go play dodgeball. And I said, "Oh, that sounds like fun." So I go play dodgeball. And I don't know if y'all know anything about dodgeball, because I hadn't played it since I was a kid. But I was the last one left on the team. So I was running over to the side to dodge these balls, and I tripped and I fell, and I hit this metal rod. It hurt so bad. I had the biggest bruise on my leg. But our team won. We didn't lose one game. And it was funny because he had took me out and put somebody else in for me to play. And then when we all got back in, Kim told me some guy was saying, "She can't go back in. She was injured." And she said, "She's 67 years old." Said he shut up. But I love to do fun stuff. I just like to be around people, and I like to be active. And my age is catching up though, because I can't stay up all night anymore. I have to go to bed, or I'm very, very grouchy the next day. And so then I get home after the cruise. I'm sick as a dog the next day. Had the worst cold I've had in years. And I had my daughter's dog, so I'm sleeping in the spare room because I can't have 3 dogs in the bed, me and Bob, it's just too much. But so I'm sleeping in there with her. Well, her dog had gotten down, and she's heavier than my dog, so she came back and was whining for me to pick her up. So I leaned over to try to pick her up, and I forgot how heavy she was, and she pulled me out of the bed. I hit my head on the nightstand, so I had a black eye and this bruise. Then I was trying to pull my pants up coming out of the bathroom instead of standing in one spot pulling your pants up. I ran into the door, almost broke my toe. So I had this huge bruise on my toe, hurt my arm. I didn't even tell anybody about that because I didn't want anybody to know I hit my arm too. So I had all these bruises, I think. And the day that we was playing dodgeball, I got back to the cabin, and Bob said, "Don't you think you're too old to play dodgeball?" I said, "I'm not." I'm still in my 30s in my head. But, it's just like that kind of stuff. Working the steps, I love the 6th step because I had gotten into so many character defects once again, and I knew that I had to get through that 6th step again to be able to start. I know what they are, but knowing and working on them is 2 different things, and learning. It was weird because I was in Dallas, and a sponsee had went with me, and we're working the 6th step. She's got 14 years, and we were both back on the 6th step, and we're writing the character defects and trying to figure out what the spiritual principle is of the character defect. And I go, wait a minute, I got a T-shirt that has all the spiritual principles on the back. So we're sitting there in the bed. It was such a great experience sitting there writing with her and talking about those spiritual principles and which one we thought went with what, you know. And it was just an awesome way to work that step. You know, the 8th step, I'll never forget my first amends, because my brother was my caretaker. You know, he's the one that always took me back in, him and his wife. And so Bob and I had been married, I don't know, a couple of years maybe, and I was doing an 8th step, and my brother needed a new refrigerator. So Bob and I went to Sears and charged a refrigerator and had it delivered. And he said, you know, we can't, it was at Christmas time, and that was their Christmas present. He says, you know, we can't afford this kind of present for you. And I said, no, this is about you taking care of me, you know, all those times. And so, you know, that was like so gratifying, although I probably owe them, I know I owe them a lot more money than that, but, you know, it's just like being able to do that for them. They needed that refrigerator so bad. And she passed away a few years ago, you know, and I never got to really tell her beforehand of how much she meant to me, you know, because I thought of her as my mom, you know, even though she wasn't much older than me, that she was a second mom. So working that step and being able to do that for them really helped, you know. I still got one amends on my list that it's a girl that I lived with in Baton Rouge when I was using. I still owe her some money, and I'm going to have to find out how to get in touch with her again, and so I want to pay her back. It's been on my every 8th step the last few times, you know, because I kept forgetting about it. And I believe the reason that I go back through the steps when I'm finished is because every time I've worked a 4th step, something new has came out. You know, one year the sponsor had me write down what the event was, what happened, how I reacted to it, and I forgot what else, but it brought up a lot of the sexual issues as a child. You know, I was never actually molested, but I saw a lot of stuff that a child did not have any business seeing. You know, I used to have a cousin that would like to pleasure himself in front of me, you know, and I was scared of him, you know, so, and I had a psychiatrist one time that said, I caught my brothers molesting 2 of my nieces. And she says, what makes you think they didn't do it to you? And I said, because I don't have any memory of it. And she said, that doesn't mean it didn't happen. So, you know, I had to write, when I was writing all that stuff down in that 4th step, it got too hard to face all that stuff, you know. And I called my sponsor and said, I can't do this. And she said, pray harder. She said, and I want you to picture God with you in bed while you're writing, and that he's holding you in his arms, and what you want your God to look like. And I had never thought about that before, what I wanted God to look like. So I pictured this old man, blonde, with a long blonde beard, you know, a gray beard, and because I never grew up with a grandfather, you know, and I wanted a grandfather. And so that's who I pictured, and that really helped with my God spirituality a lot, being able to do that. And I've had sponsees do that, you know, that whatever you want to call your higher power, you know, mine's God. And when I first got here, you know, with the steps and traditions on the wall, you know, you see God a lot, and I thought, oh, they're going to tell me I got to go to church. I'm not going to church, you know. But because I have been through a lot of religions growing up, thinking that was going to be the one that was going to make a difference, you know. But y'all didn't tell me that, you know. You told me to get my God and my understanding, and I love that. Yeah. I believe in carrying the message, you know, still, and I still do service work, you know. I told you I do region. I haven't done area again lately. I was in it for 2 years when we moved to Alexandria, and just haven't gotten back into it. But I love to go to functions. You know, I was in Lafayette a week or so ago at a function, and it's just like that's how I feel connected to y'all, you know, being at conventions like this, you know, and knowing that we're all trying to do the same thing, just stay clean another day, you know. And I never would have thought that was possible when I got here. People would say they had 7 years, and I'd say, yeah, right. What are they doing on the side, you know? Because that was the most anybody had when I got clean was 7 years. And I would think they were nipping at something, and they just weren't telling, you know. So, and I thought that y'all were going to tell me how to use drugs successfully. that didn't happen, When they said nothing, I thought, what? And then I was taught, you got to read the labels on cough medicine because there's so many cough medicines that have alcohol in them, and I had to learn to start doing that, I can't take nothing no matter what. That was the topic today, no matter what, and I have to remember that, that I'm so scared that my daughter's going to be one of us that ends up, having to die from this disease. She's OD'd a couple times and didn't die, but came so close. But I know that I can get through that with y'all's help, that I can get through anything as long as I'm willing to talk about it and share about it. Jeff took my saying today I was going to tell y'all about, it works if you work it, and it works if you don't work it. It just may not work for you. I love that saying, and I think about it all the time because I wasn't going to work the steps. And when I started working the steps is when I believed that my life started changing. I had 18 months, and the sponsor told me I had to write the first step, and so I was willing to do it, And I believe that that's when I started changing. I started wanting to get better. I wanted to be the best person that I could be, And I've been very fortunate in my recovery that I've gotten to go to. I've had jobs where I've gotten to go to a lot of places. I got to go to Paris one time. Work sent me, and I'm standing there looking at the Eiffel Tower, and I just started crying. I said, "Wanda Winkler is standing here at the Eiffel Tower." We grew up so poor. I didn't have shoes in the summer, When I met Bob, he would say something about his mother raised 7 kids and she put a whole onion in meatloaf. I said, meat? You had meat? We had rice and beans, So it's just that kind of, that, and I've been so blessed, and I try to remember that about how blessed I am, that God gave me this. I forgot to thank the committee too. I love GRCNA, I love coming back when I can. And just thank the committee for letting me share. I believe that this is a way to give back also. Like I started to tell you, I've been in service work ever since I had about a couple months clean. I became secretary of my home group. And so ever since then, and I used to have to clean, we used to smoke in meetings when I got here. Oh my God, and I don't smoke. And I had to clean ashtrays. I would be gagging cleaning ashtrays, It's like, but I did it because they asked me to, And I want to tell you about when the year key tag came out that glows in the dark. A bunch of us women had to go in the bathroom and turn off the light to make sure it really glowed in the dark. That was so exciting, happened. So just, thank y'all for listening. I just want to tell you one more little Jimmy saying. If no one's told you today that they love you, you may want to talk.